We're looking forward to seeing those numbers increase drastically with the advent of United Airlines flying into Dominica.
Thank you, Marva. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much more I can add to that. I think PS and Miss Williams stated it very succinctly in that what this does, it plugs Dominica into the global economy more so than just tourism. In that New York is the financial hub, financial capital of one of the biggest economies in the world. The northeastern region is your single largest source market insofar as travelers and tourists out of the United States of America, which is the single largest contributor to stay-over visitors to the Caribbean as a whole. So we're finally putting the conduits, if you will, or the plumbing that enables us to get a bigger piece of the pie, which is the stay-over tourist arrivals into Dominica. And also going forward, even from a trade and economic connection perspective, you have traveling nomads. You have people who work away from the office, work from home. Dominica can now be defined as home. And in the instance where you have to fly back quickly to your office, that connection also enables that. So it enables a significant or step change in our visitor profile and visitor arrivals, and also from a trade perspective, it also makes it easier to transact business between Dominica and one of the major financial hubs in the world globally.
Very well. And Mr. Bardouille, you've served as chief at DASPA, Dominica Air and Seaport Authority. I can imagine how significant this is for you witnessing this moment.
Well, certainly. In terms of ensuring from a technical standpoint that the airport, the existing airport, was able to respond to be able to get the increased size equipment at the airport. As you know, we had to go over several issues in terms of the negotiations with the various airlines. So I'm elated in the sense that we were able to not only look at getting one airline to be able to connect to our source market in Miami, but now in terms of the tri-state area, again in terms of expanding that source market, we were able to do that. And I think importantly, it is also to note that we are responding to the numerous requests from Dominicans, from overseas nationals.
Hold that thought, Mr. Bardouille. I know you have a powerful voice, but if you could just shift the microphone a little bit. Yes.
From overseas nationals, visitors, wanting to come to Dominica, but with the challenge of not being able to have direct access. And being able to do that, and being able to reach out to new source markets for us, especially in the tri-state area, makes it not only for us here in terms of visitation, because our goal really is to increase the visitation and to go after ensuring that we can create a better awareness about Dominica within the marketplace, and also being able to connect persons directly so that the cost of travel could become one of the issues that persons could actually benefit from, and that persons don't have to go to several destinations before they can get to Dominica and have to overnight. And the emphasis here is that direct access takes away the issue of having to overnight or having to go through another tier of immigration and customs processes in another country before you get to Dominica. And so now we are able to reach a lot more of our potential visitors than we could before. So I'm elated in the sense that we're able on the ground to make the physical characteristics of the airport suitable for that size aircraft to be able to land in Dominica safely, and also to ensure that passengers can enjoy Dominica after a 3-hour, 48-minute flight. And that takes out, the challenge of sometimes people having to travel for a whole day or overnight. Those things are important within the travel sector, and we're beginning to see a lot more visitors in the diving community and other areas that we would not normally have appeal to, given the fact that we had not had direct access.
All right, our technician is just going to adjust our microphones a little bit, but just mentioned the developments which had to take place at the airport, the infrastructural developments recently to accommodate these airlines. And, quite a few persons would have been asking, are we able, when persons heard like United Airlines, major airline, can what size plane is landing in Dominica? Can we accommodate these flights? So just break it down a little bit in terms of the works, the recent works, and how we've been able and to just accommodate airlines and planes such as what we had landing a few weeks ago at the airport, guys.
Okay, so Miguel, just to start with, basically, as you know, that we had challenges with Douglas Charles, and one of the major reasons why the government of Dominica invested in an international airport is that we were challenged in the sense that we could not, given the physical characteristic of the airport, it was going to be a major challenge for us to be able to build an airport that could accommodate flights, long-haul flights in particular, coming out of Europe and coming out of Asia, and being able to have those like a 777, for example, or 787 coming to Dominica. Those kind of things required a certain length of runway and all of the other things that are required by the International Civil Aviation Organization. So one of the things that the approaches was to be able to ensure that Dominica can grow itself over time, is that utilize the existing airport and make modifications where necessary, and to be able to look at our targeted group of equipment that we can take in Dominica. And so clearly we started with the issue when we discussed with the pilots and the various airlines, and we had consultations with the private sector, including the hotel and tourism and all of the persons. We realized that for them to fill their hotel rooms, for business in terms of Dominica to pick up in relation to tourism, we needed to have more persons access Dominica. We identified very early on 5 areas within the region where persons transit through, but albeit the direct flight was the preferred option for us in terms of moving into those source markets. So the existing runway could not facilitate that. We were only 5,741 feet at the time. We were told that if we don't have 6,000 feet runway, you're not in the game. It's not in terms of the type of equipment. So the government of Dominica had to make a decision. Yes, we were going to build a new airport, but we're going to have to grow the existing profile in terms of the airport, in terms of passengers, so that by the time we get into this new one, we can just seamlessly flow into it. And so the runway was looked at in terms of extension, and in our discussions, we were told that we had some issues in relation to wet runways. We had about 30 cancellations, and the hoteliers and everybody was beginning to complain because they had their guests, and then they lost their guests because the guests had to go back either to Miami or Puerto Rico. And so those vacations were spoiled because of that. And increasingly, we were told the issue of wet runways was a problem for us as well. And as you know, we're challenged because when you look to the west of the airport, you have the highest range mountain, 4,747 feet, Mont Diablo. So this is something that you cannot physically take off.
Yeah.
So we had to make the adjustment. And so what we did is, after consultation with the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, and we had some ICAO experts as well come to visit us, we then decided to lengthen the runway in terms of ensuring that we can lengthen this runway safety area, and as well get aircrafts landing from the CN to be able to think. So we took that from 5,741 feet to 5,952 feet. Okay? So that made it, for us, it helped us to be able to talk to the airlines, and we identified the equipment. But obviously, we were not going to the airlines without our information as well. We spoke with Airbus, we spoke with several of the persons in the field. We had several scenarios drawn so that when we went to the airlines, we knew what type of equipment could utilize the airport. And so it was important for us, because they were not only telling us, we were informing them as well what types of equipment And we went meticulously to identify all of the equipment used by the various airlines. So we're not going to talk about 777 when we don't have a runway for that. We're going to talk about the E170s, the E190s, the A319s, the A320s, based on the capability, and the A220s. So we knew exactly the type of aircrafts that we could actually target. And then we started trying to identify them with the markets based on Discover Dominica. We're trying to identify the markets. The tri-state area was a very critical area, as Samuel pointed out to you. It's in the heart of the financial capital, in terms of New York. And so we wanted to ensure that we could have that sort of connectivity. And one of the things the PS and the rest of the person will tell you, that for us, connectivity in relation to moving passengers is key. So the times in which we get the flights, the time in which the flights go back for connection onward and that kind of thing, that's important. So, out there a person may just figure, just one thing, but it's not. And then we were told, if you, after you do that, in terms of the wet runway, grooving would solve that issue. And so we also examined that, went back, and I want to say thanks to the Prime Minister and the rest of the government team, especially our Minister of Tourism, which was vibrant in terms of pushing and helping us to drive the case. We managed to get the runway, the entire runway, grooved. That was a major landing point for us in terms of getting the airlines to, well, you've done this, you've done that, well, now it's up to us now to be able to come up and tell you what sort of equipment we can provide. And we started discussing schedules. And I can tell you at this point in time that we've had several constructive, and I put it productive meetings with the various airlines in terms of Dominica. Based on all of the accolades that Marva will tell you, I don't want to kind of just dominate this thing, but as chairman of Discover Dominica, I'm involved in over the years in a number of issues as it relates to increasing our tourism product here in Dominica. So at the airport, like I said, I was instrumental in terms of being able to discuss and to get some of those things in the physical infrastructure acceptable to the airlines. That was done. And worked with Discover Dominica and the Ministry of Tourism to ensure that the other aspects in terms of creating the atmosphere, creating all of the attributes in relation to tourism. And they will tell you about the pillars of tourism and all of the aspects that we talked about to be able to ensure that we could get the visitors here into Dominica. So for us, it's a major accomplishment to be able to have American Airlines coming daily, to have them twice on a Saturday, and to have United now on a Saturday. I mean, not only that, but the Air Access Committee, I will tell you, has done a tremendous amount of work over the years in terms of trying to connect persons. And we see it now when we talk about the American and we talk about United. But we have been over the years talking about Caribbean Airlines. People see Caribbean Airlines come to Dominica. They have several flights in and out of Dominica. All of the work being done is being done with the Air Access Committee. We have Winair. We have all of those things connecting the various Caribbean ports to Dominica, because we know that where our travelers move to, how they come through, and we're not only dealing with air access from a standpoint alone, we're dealing with sea access as well. So it's a consolidated effort to be able to increase visitation to Dominica. I know I've said a lot, but
well, you've been doing a lot. You're aware of a lot, and that's okay. Yeah. You mentioned too the Mont Diablo, the mountains, but I can tell you, landing in Dominica, especially during the day, the scene is like no other. I mean, just green. It's so beautiful. For persons listening, probably never visited Dominica, because we're listened to all over the world, and people can access the program via the social media, via the internet. Why Dominica as a destination? Before we get into the airlines and the intricacies of that, why Dominica? Perhaps one of the ladies could just speak to a traveler out there, someone who just wants to go out and have fun. Why Dominica?
To begin with, Miguel, we're dubbed the Nature Island of the Caribbean, and we're called the Nature Island for a reason. I mean, that's a tagline that has been associated with Dominica probably before I was born. And before I go into the why, I just want to share some insight as it relates to destination marketing. Once upon a time, we had a lot of Caribbean islands, boasting and talking about sun and sea and white sand beaches and so. But what we've seen, the trajectory and the patterns we've seen is that people are sort of moving away from white sandy beaches. People are looking for some more deeper sense and meaning as it relates to nature. People are looking for something authentic, real, out of the ordinary. They want to get away from the noise and the bustle. They want to breathe clean air. They want to eat great food. They want to have experiences, in the trees and the mountains and all that. And that is exactly what Dominica has to offer. If you're looking for a real, authentic, relatively unspoiled island, which is still modern, where you can still sit down and go on the internet and do all that is necessary, that is Dominica. And we've been offering that for years, and even now that offering is on top of everything. If we go deeper in terms of our offering, when we look at the aqua pillar of tourism, it speaks of the water, and it speaks of the river and all the experiences that you can have with that. I believe Dominica is the top destination for diving. So if you're looking to dive, if you're looking for real underwater experiences, and I'm not talking about coral reef that was placed and created there, like the real coral underwater experiences, then Dominica has that to offer. So you can come, you can do scuba diving, you can do free diving, and you can also experience the water with the whales. We boast of having the sperm whales, right? And the sperm whales are only unique to the Dominican water. As we speak, we have probably a little over 250 sperm whales that are just there. We've tried to figure out, what it is about Dominica that makes our water so relevant to the sperm whales. We've not been able to figure that out. I think it's because we have the real corals and everything under the water. They really love that. So that is something people enjoy. When you look at the agro pillar of tourism, when you're talking about going through nature, we have the hiking. You can hike the Waitikubuli National Trail. We have the longest hiking trail in the Caribbean. If you come to Dominica, you can say, I'm coming to Dominica for 2 weeks and I'm going to hike that trail. Or you can do specific segments during your stay. We have the Waitikubuli Sea Trail, where you can be on the sea and enjoy the rugged nature that Dominica has to offer. And with that is coupled the good food. We grow our own food. We've received accolades, like Mr. Bardouille has mentioned, as it relates to our food, that Dominica is one of the best places to eat.
Yes.
We also boast of the Kalinago. We're one of the only islands with the indigenous people. Mm-hmm. So if you want to come to Dominica and live like a Kalinago, you can bring your family, dress up like a Kalinago, eat the Kalinago well, listen to their history, see where they stay. That is another offering which is unique to Dominica. So there is so much when it comes to adventure, and let's not forget our festivals. Our festivals are really, really traditional. Our festival has history. Our carnival, which we're celebrating now, has so much history that we're not able to go back and say that is when our carnival was originated. It's been there for years, and it's been able to maintain its authenticity in terms of the tradition and what we offer through what is called the real mass, what we offer through the sensei and the lapu kabwit and all the different costumes. So whereas we've mixed our carnival with that contemporary offering, it is still there and authentic. We have events like the World Creole Music Festival. The World Creole Music Festival was built upon a Francophonic Creole foundation that we've been able to sustain and maintain for 25 years. So we have different offerings. If you're a solo traveler, you can come to Dominica. If you're a couple, you can come to Dominica. You can get married at one of the rivers or at the Trafalgar Falls. If your family wants to travel, and And to end it all, what I will say is Dominica is not only relatively authentic and unspoiled, we adopt the safest, one of the safest Caribbean destinations, one of the safest destinations in the world. So if you're a solo traveler, you're traveling by yourself, of course you can come to Dominica and be comfortable. So there's so much when it comes to our offering of 365 rivers for a river for every day, our clean water, fresh air, over 1,200 species of plants. You know, you can just pick a plant and make your tea out of it. So I mean, that's a mouthful, and there's a lot more, but that is what truly makes us unique and separates us and gives us the title Nature Island of the Caribbean. Have I convinced you, Miguel?
Man, especially the part about experiencing the Kalinago life. I feel like I need to spend a week in the Kalinago territory and just enjoy the life. Yeah, definitely. Now, Mr. Johnson, you mentioned earlier travelers from the northeast, how critical and important that is for these travelers around there, having that access now via United. But previously, travelers would have to connect via San Juan, American into Dominica, or via other airports. How is that United arrangement expected to complement versus affect business for American Airlines? What's your take on that?
Yeah, one thing I have noticed, and folks who've traveled notice, is that in the hospitality industry, you find competition actually grows the market instead of shrinking the market. So that's why you would go to like Las Vegas, the Strip. You have hotel, bar, restaurants. You go to Miami, you have a Strip where there's a concentration of activity. So similarly, what we've seen is with the announcement of the United that we're actually getting more attention, and instead of the pie being fixed and redistributed, the pie is actually growing. All right. And going back to your earlier point about the other many routes to Dominica, it was actually key in our overall strategy. So from a air access or access perspective, there are three primary strategic goals. One, you want to eliminate overnights, so same day connection or same day travel as much as possible. The directs make that very, very possible. Second, you want to reduce the travel time, total travel time, just from your door to your hotel or your destination's door. And then thirdly, the total cost, most importantly for some. You want to reduce the amount of cost associated with getting to the destination. So when we started initially, we looked at the connections in San Juan, and I don't know if folks remember, before, connecting through San Juan was difficult because Silver used to leave at 12 p.m. So if you couldn't get a flight that got into San Juan before 10 a.m., you were overnighting in San Juan. All right. So one of the first steps was to fix that schedule, working with not just Silver but Inter-Caribbean and the other regional carriers to enable same-day connections. Right. So try to get them to leave their destinations as late as possible. So when you got in, you would connect. Secondly, one of the first things that we did as well was to, for the interline connections, Mr. B was with me as part of that team, to ensure that even before we had directs, you could connect or book a ticket to Dominica on United, Delta, JetBlue. You could go on their websites and book flights into Dominica. And that is, as happens in all across the U.S. and most places, the interline connection, you very rarely get any visibility or make a big deal about which is the regional carrier you're connecting with. So even before United started or American started, you could book a flight to Dominica, connecting in either San Juan or in St. Martin in the case of Winnie, on United, Delta, and JetBlue. You still can do that as of today. So now with the direct out of Newark, what that has done is brought increased visibility into those connections. So although you only have a direct on Saturday, you can book a round trip ticket on United virtually any day of the week. And due to the interline connections that they have with Winair out of St. Martin and now most recently Antigua, or Silver out of San Juan, you can now book on United, come down direct on Saturday and go back on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on any of the other routes. And whereas before you always had the visibility of Dominica on their website, now with the direct flight, it pops up even when people go to look for the direct flight, although that flight is performing very well, but they see the other options, which is you could also book going through San Juan, St. Martin, or Antigua most recently. And then in terms of the impact on the other airlines, we have seen that instead of American reducing flights, they've doubled their service on Saturdays, the very same Saturday that United is coming in on. So Douglas Charles on a Saturday is, as Mr. B can tell you, is a very interesting place to be, because there's a lot of traffic coming in on Saturdays from not just United but two on American, and you also have Silver coming later, and then Caribbean Airlines coming in, and Caribbean Airlines is ATR 68 seats, American Eagle is 76. So in terms of sizes, it's fairly large aircraft coming in. And then if you were to go and try to book flights on that Saturday, which is the days that you have the most competition, you'll realize that those days are actually the most booked days. All right. So instead of seeing a lot of availability, you're seeing alternative routes being offered because of the of how well those flights are performing on those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So net, I think the more of the direct flights you bring in, the easier you make it for visitors to come. The more awareness the destination gets, where you can only grow. I mean, if you look at the Caribbean region as a whole, in 2019, over 30 million stayover visitors came to the Caribbean. 30 million. Dominica, which was one of our best years, we were 89,000. So we haven't even broken 100,000. If you look at neighboring islands, St. Vincent last year just reached 100,000. Right? So the steps that we are taking right now is accelerating that growth that we need, and we've set the target that we set for ourselves, so that when we look at our neighbors, it is a saying in Creole, and my Creole is not one that I boast about, but when your friend's beard is on fire, wet yours, right? Right, Marva can break it down for us now. Right, so in the States they have a nicer term, they call it benchmarking, where you look at what your competitors or your other peer companies are doing and you learn from it. So I think we've learned from the St. Vincent experience very closely, in that you don't build the airport and then go look for the airlines. All right. Otherwise, you'd have a nice big structure sitting down for 2-3 years before you have those relationships being made. We're in a position now that not only we have one, which is American, but you also have United, and these are not little small regional LCC operators or whatever up and coming airlines. These are mainline established flag carriers that are reputable. And what that does for us, with every successive one you get, it moves the goalposts in terms of, and makes it easier for the next airline to come. So with American Airlines, we proved that the route was viable with using Embraer 175s. These are regional jets with 76 seats. With the United Airlines now, we have now proved that with the Boeing 737, unencumbered, no weight restriction, you could fly direct between New York and Dominica. So that just opens up the field. And when you sit down across the table with the airlines and you tell them who's flying, then a lot of the technical pushback that you would have gotten in the past, that conversation becomes a lot easier. All right? And then I know a lot of folks complained in the past about American Airlines ticket prices and how the tickets were very high. But actually that works in our favor.
Of course.
Because that information becomes public information 1 year later. Because all of that is logged in the Department of Transportation in the U.S. So all the airlines can now see what is the average revenue per passenger, right? And again, the higher that is initially, it's better for you because it shows how attractive the route is when speaking with other airlines. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I want to go to the PS, Ms. Valmond. Of course, we've had an increase of stayovers over the past few, especially with the introduction of American. Now, we would expect a further increase with United. Speak to us on the trend, the overall increase over the years, and your projections for the near future. I know the minister spoke of the what number? I think 500,000.
500,000
by
2030.
By 2030. All right. And so speak to us about that. And what do we have to do to realize that 500,000 within the next few years? Speak to us on that, PS.
Thank you, Miguel. So as Samuel and the rest of the team would have mentioned, we remain strategically focused on growth. And all of our activities with regards to air access, with regards to the brilliant marketing campaigns, all of those have one thing in mind in terms of growth. Growth with regards to stayover arrivals, growth in terms of seat capacity, crews, hotel rooms. That is what we are focused on. And I'm happy that you're able to even portray the graphical data. So it shows it in one picture in terms of where we have been, where we are now, and certainly where we are going. With regards to total arrivals, 2024 saw an increase to 420,585. That's total arrivals. And this is the highest number within the 12-year period that we usually use in terms of benchmarking and setting our targets. With regards to our key performance indicators, it shows growth of 8% from 2023 and 30% growth from 2019. 2019 because so far, before this year, 2019 had been our base year. Before COVID, it had been our highest year on record, but now 2024 is certainly surpassing that. And one can appreciate the growth in the sector based on that data. And like I said, we are showing now the growth trajectory. The dips you're seeing there would represent, it's clearly shown in terms of Hurricane Maria and the 2 years of shutdown due to COVID. With regards to cruise, both in the number of calls and the number of passengers are showing steady increases as well. From 2023 to 2024, there has been a 15% increase in the number of calls, the highest number of calls over that same 12-year period. And when we compare to 2019 calls, it has increased by 40%. Passengers increased by 7% compared to 2023 and 50 compared to 2019. And it should be noted that of those passengers, about 80% disembark onto the destination to enjoy all of our wonders. A recent Business Research and Economic Advisors report indicated that each of those cruise passengers spend on average $63 in the destination, and that is an increase from a few years ago when it was 55. So not only are we increasing the number of calls, we're seeing the number of passengers increase, the number of disembarked passengers, and also the per passenger spend of each of those persons. The same study indicated that the cruise industry in 2024 contributed $21 million and supported 497 jobs. And I know this is a lot of data, and it is something that over the week we will share on our social media so that persons can appreciate the growth in the sector. Stayover visitor arrivals are showing similar patterns of growth with a 12% increase over 2023 to 2024. And an IMF issues paper recently indicated that for the stayover visitors, they spend on average of 3,500. And so, as I mentioned, the indicators are important, not only the numbers, but for each of those stayover of those cruise visitors, you can see clearly what the contribution is to our jobs and our economy. Moving along to seat capacity. Seat capacity has definitely shown growth as well. Presently, we have on average weekly 3,738 seats to the destination, and this is compared to 1,600 post-Maria, and very interestingly, only 546 post-COVID. So post-COVID, we were at 546 seats per week, and now we are at 3,738. This does not include the 400 persons which come on every ferry, and it only focuses on air access for this indicator. Our accommodations continue to grow as well. We're seeing an increase in the number of certified rooms, as well as growth in the vacation rentals, what we call Airbnb. They are certainly steadily increasing. So that just shows a picture, because with every milestone, we have a milestone with the United flight, but with every milestone, it is important to take stock of where we are, where we have been, and certainly where we're going. And to reiterate, Miguel, that shows that you're really paying attention. Our target ultimately is to be at 500 stayover by 2030 and 1 million cruise by that same period, 2030.
All right, fantastic. Some very important stats there indeed. Based on the stats, I suspect and I would imagine peak in terms of arrivals would be around the festive seasons, or Carnival and Independence. It doesn't mean, Miss Williams, that we have to take things for granted. We still have to do our work when it comes to marketing the destination, even from, especially from a digital standpoint these days. Speak to us on that.
Of course, yes, indeed. Our peak periods are during the carnival season, during the independence, and so on. But of course, investing in the destination marketing is ever so important. And one of the things that we've been pushing, one of the agendas, is to redefine our digital footprint. Whether we like it or not, we have billions of people in the world, and data shows that 70 to 80% of individuals always have a cell phone in their hand. They're always scrolling, they're always searching. And one of the distribution channels that are being utilized now by businesses of all sorts, by the United Airlines, the American Airlines, all the top companies we know in the United States and worldwide is digital. So that is one of the places that we've been looking into, and we've started to establish our footprint. So when people search, when people Google, when people are looking for flights, when people are looking for a distinct destination, then Dominica pops up. That doesn't mean that we're not going after the other distribution channels. We've went back and continued to be persistent in terms of our trade shows. So last year we would have done one of the dive trade shows in Las Vegas, just to solidify the fact that we're the number one dive destination in the Caribbean. As of recent, we did a number of trade shows in New York City where we engaged top media personnel like CNN, CBC, NBC, just giving them an update on the destination, building their interest. We also engaged consumers, travel agents, and media again at another trade show where we were able to have that direct conversation with them and get them excited, about coming to Dominica on those direct flights and through the other mediums. Very soon we'll be going to Las Vegas, to New Jersey. We will be participating in a trade show again and pushing the dive and encouraging individuals to make the summer their Dominica their number one destination for summer. Put Dominica on your bucket list. In a few days we'll be going to Germany. Germany has been one of our our top markets, especially when it comes to adventure seekers, people looking to hike and so on. So we're going back to that market and repositioning ourselves and saying, hey, we're still here. These are some of the visitors who will stay in Dominica for about 2 weeks on average and who spend a lot. You heard the PS give the data in terms of the average spending for stay over visitors of the sort. So investing in the marketing is ever so important, but our destination has been doing excellent. I mean, we've gone through challenges generally from an economic standpoint. I mean, given all the recent, events that we had no control over the years, we've had to, decide where investment go. But we've seen Dominica on top of the board with all the accolades. Like 2024 was a year of accolades for us. Like Travel and Leisure voted us the #1 island in the world, not in the Caribbean, to visit. As of recent, BBC dubbed us the #1 destination to travel to in the world as well. So that's a big thing for Dominica. AFA magazine, this is a magazine that goes towards the luxury people, the big spenders, has dubbed us the best destination for solo travelers. I spoke about accolades when it comes to eating. We've gotten accolades when it comes to your family, and so many different accolades, which means the awareness of the destination has increased drastically. It's amazing when you have those one-on-one conversations with individuals and they say, oh, I remember Dominica, or that's an island that is on my bucket list. So the investment in marketing is ever so important. Of course, we have to be strategic about it. We have been strategic. We intend on going deeper, and we always want to have that always on component, and digital is that for us. We want, when we go to people, I saw something about Dominica on social media, or that popped up, and that is also a way of putting out information about our stakeholders. Discover Dominica, we don't have any hotels or airlines or anything, so it's a medium to always impress upon people that we have the luxury hotels, the 5 stars and the 6 stars. We also have the apartments, we have the Airbnb, so we have a varied type of accommodation. We have all these sites and attractions and various adventure that you can tap into, and of course we're being recognized by premium media in the world as a destination.
Yes, very well, thank you. And for those just joining us, we are talking advancing air access and redefining Dominica's tourism sector. Our guest, Miss Lisa Valmond, the PS in the Ministry of Tourism, Miss Marva Williams, Chief Executive Officer at the Discover Dominica Authority, Ambassador Benoit Bardouille, Chairperson of the Discover Dominica Board of Directors, and Mr. Samuel Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of the International Airport Development Company and Chair of the Access Committee. Speaking of which, Mr. Johnson, before I get to Mr. Bardouille, let me just ask, how are your efforts in redevelopment tied into your planning for the International Airport itself?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, in that and as I indicated earlier on, the road development push that we're having into Douglas Charles is not instead of the international airport, but because of the international airport. Yeah, because it became very clear, and I spoke about earlier benchmarking, that if we're going to have a new airport that is 5 times the size of Douglas Charles, we need to ensure that the volume of traffic to utilize that investment grew significantly by the time we are able to cut ribbons in the new airport. So the approach that we've been taking, working in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism, DASPA, DDA, is when we engage airlines and we start having conversations about the new airport, we are very strategic in terms of how we categorize the airlines that we talk to. We first go after airlines which have the capability of flying into Douglas Charles today, right? So that would be our short-term targets, and as well have the capability for the future airport. So it's a two-pronged, 2 bites at the apple, if you will. One, well, we have a new airport coming. and we'd like to have discussions as to new routes into the new airport. And by the way, we have Douglas Charles today and what can be done to be able to provide service today. And it is actually as a part of these discussions that we were able to get first-hand feedback from the airlines, not just one or two or three. We talked to over 25 different airlines operating into the Americas and Europe and even as far as Asia. And we're able to get very solid, concrete feedback from them that if you're able to just get your runway to over 6,000 feet, then our operations guys will be able to take a closer look, and we might be able to do something, right? So even the improvements that are being made at Douglas Charles are in concert with the development plans of the new airport. And the improvements, I know when the discussion about the extension first came about, Mr. B and a lot of folks got a lot of flack because there was pushback as well. Why are we spending money on and extending and enhancing Douglas Charles, and there's a brand new airport being built? But as the folks who arrived on Saturday and the Saturday before, we'll let you know that it is better to have that access today than wait another 2-3 years to get that service coming into Dominica. So by the time the new airport comes in, we would already have relationship and operations and direct feedback from American Airlines, United Airlines, Caribbean Airlines is already here, and several others that we're talking to. So even the enhancements and investments that are being made in Douglas Charles are very deliberate and very calculated in that there's almost an immediate return on the investment. So if you recall, the extension and grooving finished earlier this year. United started 2 weeks ago. In the history of Dominica, I don't know if we've seen as quick a return on some of these investments, and even additional enhancements will be made in a systematic way now that you have the relationship to tweak, improve operations, and retain and grow the services that we have whilst going after additional airlines. I think Dominica's long-term vision is not only to have point-to-point service to key source markets in North America, Europe, and as far as you can get, but also to exploit our geographical location to even be considered as a hub within the Eastern Caribbean. Because if you look at our location on a map, and actually anyone looking at the booth that we use at Roots, a key feature that we show is Dominica in the middle of the Eastern Caribbean, right? Smack in the middle between San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Port of Spain, Trinidad. So having service to any of the islands within that area from Dominica is an hour or less, right? If you have the right aircraft that you're using. So to be able to do that, not only do we have to do route development from an international carrier perspective, but also we have to keep our regional carriers as close as possible, right? So the point you raised earlier, how does that complement or compete with our regional carriers? We want it to complement our regional carriers. I mean, I have examples where even with American Airlines, when it just started, there was weather-related delay in New York, and I was actually traveling from Miami coming down to Dominica. And on the flight to Dominica was a guy traveling to Trinidad, right? So American was able to shift him from their flight going to Trinidad to the flight going to Dominica. And then he was able to connect on the Caribbean Airlines flight from Dominica to Port of Spain, right? So the importance of the regional connectivity is also helps you grow the overall traffic through the airport and the utilization of the airport. We've seen with Inter-Caribbean and Winia to some extent, you have passengers being dropped off in Dominica and connecting to other flights going on to other destinations. So in transit, passenger traffic has also increased. All right. So these building blocks, as they fall into place, I think bodes well to Dominica's ambition in the aviation space,
Yeah.
and our ability to not just attract traffic to Dominica, but attract traffic connecting through Dominica. If we remember in our not too distant history, some of the terminal enhancements and expansions that were done in Antigua and even in Barbados factored in traffic going to Dominica. Right? That's how much we contributed to their operations, and we should also strive to get some of that activity. I often tell airlines that we're in the middle of the Eastern Caribbean and also in the center of Europe, because we have Guadeloupe and Martinique to the north and south of us with very good connectivity by ferry service. So we are probably in a very enviable position in that we can not offer just an authentic Caribbean experience. We can also put in the sprinkling of the French and Francophone experience in that you could twin Dominica with Guadeloupe or Martinique, where you come here, spend some time here and go over. And that actually has been happening for years,
Right,
in that
yes.
people
Yes.
fly into, especially the French and German travelers, they would fly into Guadeloupe and Martinique and then hop on the ferry and come to Dominica and spend some time. So hopefully in the future we can do some of that in reverse as well.
Yeah. Mr. Bardouille, we've been able to circumvent so many challenges, obviously, over the years, as it relates to improve the air access to Dominica. But to add to what, Mr. Johnson said, your own take in terms of the long-term strategies at ensuring that Dominica remains competitive and we can attract even more international travelers to the destination, Mr. Bardouille.
Yeah, so one of the things we want to do is to ensure that our market share, there's constant growth in terms of the market share that we have as it relates to tourism. For Dominica, as has been pointed out, there are several aspects that we look at. We look at, in terms of the data that we have from our French, or what they call French overseas countries, and France, attributes to about 40% in terms of the volume of persons coming from those countries. So that's a very important sector for us that we want to continue to grow. And as Samuel indicated, we're in the middle of Europe, as has been pointed out in terms of Guadeloupe and Dominica and Martinique. We want to grow that market share, so there's a lot of concentration from Discover Dominica standpoint in terms of enabling from the marketing to be able to reach out to those persons to have a stay in Dominica. So one of the things in terms of the planks, I would call it, in terms of our strategy from the Air Access Committee, is to seek to increase connectivity within the region for us. So we, notwithstanding the fact that we have direct flights, we're actually seeking to negotiate with the second-tier airlines to be able to ensure that we can have connecting flights to the various other things. So we can leave Dominica, go to Barbados, connect to Europe, for example. These kind of things that we're trying to work on whilst we're growing and whilst we're building the airport. So for us, we're looking at the targets that we have. We're making those evaluations. We're putting money in terms of destination marketing to be able to reach out to those areas that we think that we have a very strong potential in attracting new visitors to Dominica. And so that's why we are going after the diving community, because that is very strong for us. We're looking into the adventure and wellness areas. So for us, as you see, based on the statistics provided, year on year, we're looking at those data and making those decisions based on the information that is coming back to us. So Discover Dominica is in fact is taking that stance where we're looking clearly, as has been pointed out, the American market is in fact growing for us very well. Because to start with 17% in 1 year, and now we're reporting 32% or 30-some plus percent in 2 years later in terms of American airlines, tells you the kind of growth pattern that we can enable from that American market. And now that we're into the tri-state area, we're looking even further to grow on that. So the strategy here is to look to see where our strengths are in terms of the marketplace, in terms of those source destinations, and exploit as much resources as we can to be able to attract persons into Dominica. So we're looking to make sure that we can connect persons throughout the regional thing, because we have also our festivals. Very important aspect for us in terms of regional connectivity is our festivals, because we know, for example, St. Lucia, we have Antigua, we have St. Martin, we have as far as Totola, where people are moving to come to our festivals and come to enjoy Dominica. We're also trying to appeal to our folks in Trinidad who want to do adventure and that kind of thing to be able to come to Dominica. So we're not only focusing ourselves on just the American market or say the European market. We're also looking at the regional market, because the Caribbean market is also strong for us in terms of some of the things, the areas that people are coming to. And we have lots of persons, and especially we're appealing to Dominica's overseas nationals to come back to Dominica and enjoy some of the things that we have, because we've developed a number of our products have developed over time, and we want them to come and have a vacation here in Dominica. And we're beginning to appeal to a number of different groups, associations, to be able to put meetings and have those vacation spots that we have here, so they can utilize it. So all in all, that's where we're trying to grow our numbers, and we think that based on the numbers that we're seeing today, that we will be seeking to meet our targets based on all of the negotiations that we're entering into in relation to not only the airlines, but also from a sea standpoint in terms of looking at it via ferry, and so that the visitor now has a choice, that choice in terms of being able to connect to Dominica, and those who wants to continue doing other areas can do so, but we want to make sure that we can attract. And then the important aspect for us is the hotel development. We see that there is a concerted effort by the government of Dominica to increase the room count in Dominica, and that's important, because as we increase the seats count, also too, we need the hotel count and the other accommodations to increase, because you need to ensure that you can facilitate those things. And in our discussions with the airlines, it comes up regularly. Are you in fact increasing that aspect of the product? And we said yes. Those things are growing because we have the hotels that are coming up and rooms that we have being opened up. And so that is important, because we're trying to look at the high-end passenger as well, that can come into Dominica and really spend some monies. And one of the things I want to point out is that, from a tourism standpoint, once persons come into Dominica, it filters through in terms of the fisher folk, the average person on the street, generate income based on the tourists that come to Dominica. And we want to make sure that, that profile in terms of raising the benefit within the economy from tourism is looked at. So all of the efforts that we're making, one, to create that better awareness, two, to ensure that the pricing mechanism in terms of flights to Dominica is better, because there is increased competition within the marketplace, and we want persons to be able to experience Dominica. The experience in Dominica is authentic, is second to none, and we want persons to take advantage of that. And one of the things that we're seeing today is that less and less persons are saying to us, "Oh, that's the other Dominica." No, we're not that Dominica. So basically, we're trying to make sure we make that differentiation as we move along. So I think we're making success in terms of the numbers that are coming back to us, in terms of the hard data, and these are the things that we're looking at to be able to propel our tourism industry forward.
Yeah, making success, realizing success, and making strides, taking baby steps. I'm not sure if I could take in earlier statements by Mr. Johnson as hints, because I want to be optimistic still, but I'll just throw it out there, and any of you could just, probably comment on that or answer. Could we hear of another inaugural flight, another airline in the near future before the international? Think we may hear that another?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can. And everything that we've said today drives toward that. Yeah, in that we fully intend, and I should probably say out earlier that for our traveling public to bear with us, because Douglas Charles is going to get a little bit tight
Oh, yes.
in the future, not too distant future, but in a good way. In that, we are actively seeking and talking to many airlines. The importance of stayover arrivals. I think if you're to do the math from the numbers that PS Valmond just put out, that I think the stayover on average is 3,500. The cruise is 63. So every stayover visitor is equivalent to 2.5 coaster buses. If you run the math, so that's over 50 to 1 ratio so the importance of getting and growing stayover is critical, right, from an economic contribution standpoint. So we're not tapping the brakes. We're as I said, the route development are tied by the hip. Yeah, the new terminal in the new airport is going to be 5 times the size of Douglas Charles, and we do not intend for it to be a dance hall. We want to ramp up the utilization as soon as possible, and actually we've done some good progress in that regard, because in the master plan for the international airport project has the projections based on what they call passenger activity levels. So here's PAL 1, PAL 2, PAL 3. PAL 3 being the highest level, and the terminal is sized for PAL 3. I think we're way down on PAL 1 already, right? Which is in terms of passenger arrivals and passenger activity at the airport. Mm-hmm. So the intent really is to, by the time the new airport is open, the conversation would not be about which new flights we're getting, but how much more of what we already have we're getting. And I think the focus will be more on European carriers. We're getting direct flights out of the UK, France, Germany, as Miss Williams pointed out, because we have Condor, who flies into Tobago, and Antigua and other airlines, which is a good market for us. So by the opening of the new airport, that is where I think we would be shifting focus to. But for now, we need to maximize seize every opportunity right now into Douglas Charles to get as much as we can. The conversations have been constrained by technical, because whereas all other destinations that talk to airlines about their destination, they can go straight into selling the destination. We have to start with a conversation about technical specs and fleet types of aircraft in the fleet, and the constraints and arrival procedures, and with network planning guys. So they quickly push us on to the operations guys. But once we get past that hump, where the hope is by the time the new airport comes in, it'll be just a full court press on destination. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll close with the ladies, Miss Williams, Miss Valmond. Carnival is here. We're on home stretch right now. Last lap for Carnival 2025. What do we say to our patrons and travelers?
Well, to the visitors who have already come in, welcome to the Nature Isle. We hope that you have an excellent carnival season. We've boosted a calendar of events starting from January 18th, and we've tried to maximize on that, and I think we did really well in terms of pushing the carnival out there. We had a lot of local push, regional. We did some road shows as well. We went to new places like St. Kitts, for example, where we engaged the Republic, we did Barbados as well, and we did have some international push in places like Miami. And every time we've spoken about the United Airlines flight, we've echoed the sentiments that you can come to Dominica for a week on United Airlines. So we've been very pleased, Miguel, with the progress we've made as it relates to pushing Dominica's Carnival. And me saying being very pleased is as far back as December, when we attempted to book hotel rooms for our artists coming for Sunrise, the hotels were booked. And that was very surprising for us. So we struggled a bit, but we've been able to do that. And struggling a bit on our end, that is great for us. We were happy to struggle to get accommodation even for our artists. And that showed that all the way in December, we had a lot of the high-end hotels, like the Jungle Bays and the Fort Young hotels and so on, being booked already. And even as we speak, going far back as 2 weeks ago, there were problems even securing rooms from some of the Airbnbs and some of the accommodation in Roseau. So that means that we've made strides in terms of inviting people to come to Dominica. As far back as December, speaking to some of the airlines like Win Air, coming from St. Martin, and so these flights were fully booked, created a lot of demand, people trying to get through, utilizing Antigua, St. Lucia. We haven't heard any complaints from the American Airlines flights. The flights are very, very attractive, even the United Airlines coming into Dominica for the period. So that means we have so far executed our mandate in terms of making sure that people flock into Dominica. And speaking to people over the weekends, a lot of our individuals have started coming in, so we welcome them. We tell people, let's have a safe and enjoyable carnival, and you can start to book your accommodation and book your flights for the World Choral Music Festival.
Of course.
But as we're here, and to those who are listening to us overseas, in a few days we will be launching our summer campaign, dubbed Cool Escapes. And Cool Escapes is speaks to all the adventure that I spoke about earlier, all the things that you can experience with your family, with your partner, and even as a solo traveler when you come to Dominica from May, June, July, August, and so on. So we will be sharing information on that soon, and we encourage individuals to come to Dominica. And if you're a Dominican overseas listening, you have to tell your friends that if they're looking for that real, authentic, natural experience in a relatively safe environment, then Dominica is the place to be this summer. So we really look forward to putting out the information, and we look forward to continue to engage people and building on the momentum. Miguel, I just wanted to touch lightly about an experience we had, like I've had in the past couple months coming in. And when these things happen, we have to say it. Speaking to some of the hoteliers going far back to November, December is a relatively quiet time for us. But when you speak to them about December and even early in January, which is always a quiet time, some of them would say, I don't know what happened. Like, I have no space. This is very surprising to us. We're not sure what has happened in the past couple months, but we are booked. And this means that, everybody here, the government, Ministry of Tourism, DDA, everybody, we've been working even within our limitations, and these are the results we anticipate. And we've come down on a few flights on American Airlines, myself and Mr. Bardouille as well. We experienced it together. It was amazing sitting on an American Airlines flight with strictly visitors. Like 95%, if I should say, of the people on the flight were visitors, and you could tell they were first-time visitors. And that goes back to what you mentioned earlier, when you're coming on the flights and you see the nature, whether you're landing from the sea or the mountains. Like, they were so impressed with the nature itself and everything. You could hear the excitement and the claps and so when the plane landed, and they being so eager to explore what Dominica has to offer, and that is the takeaway I want our listeners to have as we continue to push Dominica as the nature isle, as we continue to put the positive out there about destination Dominica and continue to invite people to come. We still have a lot of work to do. We have to work on our customer service efforts. I mean, the more we have people coming in, the more we need to improve on our efforts to engage people when they come, have those good conversations, communicate, and give them that experience as well, so they will want to come back to Dominica and they will tell their friends and family about this brilliant island in the Caribbean, dubbed the Nature Island.
Thank you, Marva.
Yeah.
PS?
Well, I just want to thank the team at the Ministry of Tourism. Of course, this is a team effort, and we remain squarely focused, as I mentioned before, on growth. And our focus has been on product development. You have seen massive investments over the past few years in cable car, for example, the Waitukubuli National Trail, Waitukubuli Sea Trail. We have a facility being constructed for champagne, and quite a few other product development, both by the government and by the private sector as well. Air access, of course, continues to be our focus. You've heard of the successes and the plans as well as we move forward. Marketing, as Marva would have mentioned, has been our focus, and we are seeing the results of that. Importantly, building resilient communities as well from the Ministry of Tourism perspective continues to be our focus, because we know many of our assets are located within communities, and sustainability and resilience continues to be a thread that goes through everything that we do. We know as a nation we have our goal of becoming the first climate resilient nation, and so even that trickles down to our tourism sector as well, and everything that we do has sustainability and resilience at its core, and so that is what our focus remains. We have a brilliant team, and all of us, come together with regards to, as Marva says, ensuring that Dominica takes its rightful position as the number one destination, as the number one sustainable destination, world-class destination, and of course the nature island of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Redefining Dominica's tourism sector and advancing air access. Thank you so much for your engagement, Mr. Bardouille, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Williams, and PS Lisa Valmond. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
Rivière de l'île verte.
Sweet, sweet, sweet Dominica, I will love you forever.
Say thanks to my co-producers,